Good one. All right.
Did you sticky the
Live.
post?
I don't do that anymore because it doesn't do anything. Like you have to click on the link to get the YouTube link anyway, so I just social it. I mean, I figure it's
probably okay.
yeah, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Anyway, I'm going to social it now. Yeah, we are socialed. And I'm going to restart recording because... All right. This week's Android Police podcast is brought to you by Linode. Check them out at linode.com/Android Police. Get a free $20 Linode service credit.
Welcome to the Android Police Podcast, your weekly audio source for all things Android. It is Thursday, December 15th, 2016. I'm your host, Matthew Smith.
I'm David Reddick.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
And I'm Cody Toombs.
Well, guys, it was not nice while it lasted, but apparently there's some evidence popping out that Google and some other carriers maybe aren't too pleased with the Pixel exclusivity at Verizon. T-Mobile kind of skirting the line with our first story, where they're not necessarily going to be selling Google Pixels in their stores, but they will be, sort of.
Transactions may take place in the stores that involve purchasing of Pixels, but you will not be giving T-Mobile the money for the Pixel.
Yeah, exactly. It's really weird. And I asked T-Mobile if this was legit, and they didn't give me an answer, but I can also say confidently that, yes, they're doing this. So it's a thing. They're gonna have displays, and I asked Google about it as well, and Google didn't even bother to respond. Which is to say that they have no interest in talking about it.
Did you ask Verizon about it?
Did not ask Verizon about it. I'm sure Verizon has opinions about it, though. I guess they have lots of opinions about it. Assuming they knew about it. I mean, who knows? I would imagine...
The thing about it is, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but there's kind of nothing that they could do about it, right?
I mean, I guess.
I mean, there might be nothing contractually they could do about it, but they could definitely complain to Google about it.
Yeah.
Well, is there even anything Google could do about it?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Okay, so T-Mobile can't advertise Google's phone without their permission. They can't be like, we bought like 80 Pixels and you should go buy one too or whatever. We put them in our stores.
It's like John Laguerre personally purchased all the Pixels. He just like strolls by.
He's just walking around the Verizon stores buying Pixels.
Yeah.
He's just grabbing the signage out of the Verizon store and taking it.
He just leaves them in the T-Mobile stores. Like he just like walks in and sets them down and leaves.
Grabs the display case and runs. But yeah, so Google had to be involved because I mean they have to okay all the signage and the advertising and like the copy and everything. So it's Google's trademarks and Google's copyrights and so I'm sure Google worked with them to do this. So, I mean, now, as to what Verizon can do, I'm guessing Google knows full well that there's nothing in Verizon's contract about the exclusivity that would bar them from doing this. That said, I'm sure there are, kind of common sense things that might say, hey, this might really piss Verizon off a little bit.
Maybe the Pixel 2 won't be available from Verizon.
Yeah, I have to wonder... this seems like a calculated risk.
This I think it indicates that Google is not happy with the way the Verizon deal is going. Otherwise, they would have no reason to piss them off.
Yeah, and I think it would also probably be, I think specifically, they're probably not happy with the fact that Verizon is pushing the only on Verizon thing
that line, like I can't believe that there wasn't some sort of agreement about how they would present the phone, because I mean, I've met people who think the Pixel will only work on Verizon.
But that's the thing. So even at the October 4th event, the only on Verizon thing was on the slides when Google was presenting it. So this was orchestrated.
Weird. I mean, apparently they made a mistake with that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that after the fact, Google probably regrets, agreeing to that ad campaign. But I would also bet that Verizon either is matching their ad spend or even possibly exceeding it to make that happen. So, I mean, it's obviously beneficial for Google, especially when Verizon is willing to do these promotions like on Black Friday where they, openly subsidize the phones. That's obviously a big plus for Google to push more units. But yeah, I have to, this is clearly intended to help dispel the myth the phone only works on Verizon. The myth that Google probably convinced themselves wouldn't happen with this thing, but has inevitably happened because it says that literally on all the ads.
I don't know what department would normally handle these kind of things, but between this and the V20 being the first phone to ship with Android 7.0, it feels like somebody's just like, what do you want to do? Oh yeah, that's fine. What? No, just, you know what? I don't even want to hear it. Just do what you want, and just okaying everything and letting it go through. Just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit befuddling. I mean, I guess I can see why they did it probably from a money standpoint, because man, those billboards and ads are everywhere. Like, I cannot go a day without seeing a Pixel ad. It feels like they have a giant one on there's like huge ones on the side of multi-story buildings in LA. Like, we're talking like iPhone size ads. They're spending a lot of money on this, like a lot of money. It's kind of crazy.
All right, so moving on to some Android wearables related news. So Google has acquired a smartwatch company, Chronologics, company that worked on smartwatch and integration with Alexa, bringing them into the Android Wear fold. I don't know if this acquisition could really have anything to do with Android Wear 2.0 if they're still planning on keeping that early 2017 release date, but it looks like they're at least trying to do something a little bit different and maybe a little bit more inventive in the wearable space than what they've done with Wear so far.
Yeah, this is definitely not a Wear 2.0 thing. Most company acquisitions have at least like a 9-month ramp up period before anything happens with the or whatever technologies. Truthfully, I don't think they're even going for any of the technology here. Like, everything about this screams at acqui-hire. They just wanted more people. They probably wanted to up some idea that had come along with that other company, but there's just not that much there. And the watch that company had developed was running Alexa. So,
yeah, it's also horrendously ugly.
Yes.
But
so yeah,
all of the three co-founders, I guess, of this company, they worked at Google previously anyway. So I feel like it may have just been a situation where they ran out of money and were like, so is it okay if we come back? We'll give you the company if you cover all of our debts.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The fact that they're doing an Alexa-powered smartwatch, I guess, could maybe play into the idea of, more focus on Assistant on Android Wear. I guess because those...
That would be better than the none that we currently have.
Yeah. So that could make sense from that standpoint. I'm not sure, It's kind of, I still think this is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic with Android Wear. It's just like, all right, you guys can keep trying, and I'm sure they will. I'm not saying Google's going to give up on Android Wear anytime soon, but I don't know. It seems like they're so unclear on the direction they want to go with Wear right now.
I would imagine these conversations are happening at Google right now. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with Wear, because it would be, I think it's a little early for anybody to just like throw up their hands and like give up on smartwatches. I'm not convinced that they'll ever be a thing that regular people want, but maybe they will be, and then maybe you would really regret having just stopped making them right now.
What's funny about Assistant on Wear is that Hiroshi Lockheimer in a couple of interviews kind of teased that Google Assistant would be coming to Chrome OS. So we have an announcement that Google Assistant is coming to Chrome OS before it's coming to Android Wear, which is absolutely ridiculous. For all those assistant tasks you're going to be doing on Chrome OS, all those voice queries you're doing on your laptop. Totally.
Kind of like running home. or would be kind of like home.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this point, I think they're just trying to not talk too much about where. Like, because anytime you have a delay, you're going to kind of back off and be like, whoa, wait a second. We probably shouldn't like bring too much attention to this thing at the moment. Let's back off and just kind of go radio silent when we can. With the notable exception of our next story.
Yes, the fact that the Android Wear 2.0 developer preview 4 was released this week might stand to discredit that theory.
Yeah, which it's kind of funny because the most notable distinct details about this update are a lot of the 1.0 behaviors have come back. So they got rid of using the physical hardware button. That's gone. It now takes you back to the home screen. In its place is the swipe to dismiss function that was there right from the start. So for the duration of Developer Preview 3, they got rid of the old app compatibility where you install an app on your phone and it installs to your watch. They switched over to the full like Play Store installation method, and now they support 1.0 apps again. But I think that was probably going to happen anyway, at least for the short term. It wasn't the greatest choice that they did that at all. They need the Play Store thing, but I mean shutting down 1.0 support. And then, of course, they added a bunch of APIs and stuff like that. Then that's all new. But yeah, it's weird to bring back some of the 1.0 behaviors.
Well, I guess they heard the backlash loud and clear, at least. There's definitely the navigational changes definitely are what irked me most about the initial release of Wear 2.0. It felt like it became unnecessarily difficult and cumbersome to achieve very simple tasks, and it became a situation where you'd touch something in the interface and something would happen and you'd have no idea why it happened. Like something would fly in front of you and you try to like fling it away, but everything else would go away too. Like it was weird. It was a deeply frustrating experience for me when I used it, which the last time I used it was probably 3 months ago now. No, longer than that even. Google I/O. So like 6 months.
Weird. I never had any of those issues, but it
Me
was
and
super
Artem
buggy
both
at
complained about
first.
this, like where we would touch something on the screen and it like would freak out.
A lot of weird things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never had anything like that, but the first developer preview was super buggy, really slow. I hated using that one. It was everything lagged. The screen was just maybe that was the problem. You did something, it didn't respond in time, and then the next thing you tried to do was all catching up.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it never seemed that slow on my Huawei watch, but I didn't use it that much, so
it was
barely
horrendous
recall
for me.
anymore. Because they announced
All right, well, let's move on to
Google I/O, right? That was when they announced the second preview, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so I flashed it, and then I remember I was using it, and I was still thinking, no, this is still a pain in the ass. So I at least remember being consistent in my disparaging of the changes. I don't think it was just the slowness, at least.
All right, so we've also got some news regarding Google Home and its various assistant functionalities. Apparently, Netflix and Google Photo. So this is all just casting, right? So obviously, you can't watch Netflix videos and Google Photos from your Google Home device. But casting functionality now there in Google Home, so you can cast to your cast-enabled device, as well as lots of new services, which have varying degrees of usefulness, but I guess the casting feature was one of the big ones they talked about on the announcement. So good to see that. That's finally come around.
I have a question.
Okay.
What do you voice cast with Google Photos? Like, okay, Google, show me some pictures from like last month. Like, this is like risky voice command of the week.
You could do that. So here's the thing. You have to be very confident in the photos that you've taken. But you could be like
exactly. It's so bizarre.
Like cast my photos from Florida or wherever. So yeah, if you're taking embarrassing photos, beware. But I mean, it does work really well. It's like doing a search in the Photos app, right? So like if you were in Photos, you typed in, Florida, like those are the same photos that would show up, if you said, to home to do, to cast those to your screen.
Okay. All right. That seems like maybe if you had like albums, I could maybe, but then why?
Maybe you can do that too. I don't know. I didn't test that, but
I just don't. All right, whatever.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a bad idea. Like,
I mean, people put photos on TVs to show people. Like, it's a thing people do.
Yeah, but usually, like, if you're showing somebody photos, like, try and show them a photo or like maybe 2 or 3. It's not like, all right, Google, play my slideshow from our last vacation to Florida. and here we are at the Keys. Here we are getting onto the boat.
And you clearly have not hung out with many new parents.
Oh goodness. Yeah, that's the target for this.
You. But
show
no,
me pictures of my kid. Google Home explodes.
The Netflix thing is it's neat, except you can't actually tell it you want to watch a specific episode of a show. So like if you just tell it like you want to watch a show, it picks up wherever it left off. Like wherever the last played moment is. And then obviously you can do movies or whatever, but I don't know, that seems weird. And if you ask it to do that, it tells you like I can't play episodes yet.
What?
Yeah, it knows what you said, but it's like I can't do that yet.
Okay, I remember this actually. This is related to something else, some kind of other limitation Netflix has. When you're casting Netflix, it's not able to go to a next episode, is it? You have to select it on the phone and then redo the cast, right?
I think they added that.
Did they?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
I remember some kind of limitation around this.
I
Like
mean, there might be
indexing.
there might be an API thing where like an outside service can't reach out to find a particular episode of something, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that when you're casting something, it'll play on to the next episode. It does the countdown thing. So.
Apparently, I made a bunch of people's Google Homes show pictures of stuff. So that's good. And by a bunch, I mean like 2. So you're welcome. Okay. Yeah, it's a bummer about the Netflix thing because, like, I would want to be like, well, I guess at least I'd want to be say, resume, like The Wire or something. I don't know. And just go back to where it was, but all right.
Yeah, so that's, cool. It would be better. I wish it worked better. The services that they added are kind of all whatever. They're not super useful. There are a lot of them.
Wait, you don't want to tell your Google Home to order you a pizza from Domino's?
I don't. I mean, it's
I'm sorry.
So
pizza. I'm using air quotes now.
So the only way to know that these services are even there is either to read Android Police religiously, which of course, or to go into the Home app, then into your devices, find the Google Home in your list, settings, and then there are like 2 more steps just to get there. It's ridiculous. But like it's a submenu inside of a submenu in the Home app, and then it's like it's got a list of all the services, and that's great. But like you would never. Okay, yeah. So device settings, more services. It's stupid. And then it's just a long scrollable list, like just alphabetical list of all the services. This is already getting to be a mess, and I don't know how Google is going to make any of this discoverable in the least.
So it's not even bound by like what apps you have. It just shows you a list.
It's just everything. It's
so
everything.
Like if you don't have the Domino's app, you obviously can't order a pizza.
Let's find out. Well, not all of these require an app login. Like some of them are just chat.
I assume the Domino's one probably requires some information from you.
It requires, yes. You have to link your account, but it doesn't require an app. It just opens a web page.
Okay. Interesting. I guess.
I mean, and that's the way linking Netflix works on home. You just get, a web page to log into your account and grant access.
And in the future, Google Home is going to support the you put in your payment details in one place, and you can just restaurant, doesn't matter if you set it up in the past or not, and just say, yeah, I want food, pay for it, and it'll take your money.
I assume we'll do that after we get trusted voice recognition.
That would be nice. I doubt it.
The spending of the money before anybody can spend your money maybe might be a good feature to.
You know what? It's walk into somebody's house, order 10 pizzas.
Wow. Yeah.
It's getting the pizza prank a whole new dimension.
Totally. This is definitely reminiscent to when Amazon Alexa got its skills. Like, it was famously just this long list you could kind of browse. At some point they added the categories, and it was still terrible. Like, everyone hated that, and I think it took them close to a year before they really kind of fixed that. Hopefully Google doesn't take half as long.
Yeah, I mean, what if there were, and hear me out here, what if we had sort of content hub, and maybe the content hub could have some categories, and then maybe users could rate the items in the content hub, issue reviews, and then we could have top charts and downloads and sorts of things. I mean, it sounds crazy, right?
I think
but maybe it could work.
That's probably an idea that you should patent.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, not top downloads, but like top uses. How many people are using this Google assisted functionality? Like, how popular is it? That's honestly what I would want. I don't want to have to dig through the list here.
You could call it the Android market.
No, you could.
Alternatively, I would just want them to do the thing they already promised to eventually do, which is figure out what you want from the thing that you ask for and just pick the right service up front.
Yeah, I mean, that'd
be a part of this someday.
I don't know. I mean, in a sense, I guess I can get behind that. But for certain things, like if I'm making a purchase, I know damn well what entity I'm making the purchase from. Like, I'm certain about that. I'm not like, order me a car. Use whatever. It's fine. Or order me food from, whoever, wherever.
Okay, but those are all spending money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm just talking about the transactional stuff. But for certain things, obviously, it could be any source. But I don't know.
Yeah, think about how great it would be.
We're talking about pizza.
Think about how great it would be if you could make in-app purchases on your apps directly from Google Home while you're playing the game.
No.
That's gonna happen.
I won't think about that.
That's gonna happen.
Awful.
I think that probably Clash of Clans is already implementing that right now.
Yes, like you're playing Clash of Clans and you realize that you're about to die, but you need like whatever the gold bricks are or whatever, and you can just yell at your Google Home to get you gold bricks. I don't know. It's gonna happen.
Right. I play Clash of Clans. I'm making a big vulnerable confession right now. I play it on my iPad. I've never spent a dime on that game, by the way. And at this point, I think I've reached the equilibrium point where you have to spend money to continue advancing after like 3 months. But
that sounds unpleasant.
Gold. Just want to let everybody know the gems.
Just
so everybody knows how the currency breakdown works. It's not a very fun game.
I have to tell you, I'm a little sad that you play Clash of Clans.
I know.
It's disappointing.
I judge you for a moment. I forgot about it.
It's usually when I'm like getting ready in the bathroom in the morning. Like, I have the iPad and I just.
It's interesting. Normally, when I'm getting ready in the morning, I spend my time getting ready in the morning rather than playing.
Well,
games.
It takes David time. You don't get that. You don't get that in just a couple minutes. It's a process.
David gets winded after brushing his teeth and has to take a break.
I do. It's especially with my electric toothbrush. It's a very violent process.
All right, so moving on, Google Home, of course, is the most recent entry in the Google Smart Home, approach. Last year at I/O, they announced the Brillo platform, which was designed to put a tiny little scaled down version of Android on all of the things. And now it's named Android Things because Google renames everything at least once. And I don't know. I feel like we talked about this on the show at one
I think
point
they
in time.
renamed it because Brillo is maybe, I don't know, a name for a fucking scouring pad. Maybe that's why they renamed it. I don't know.
That sounds logical to me. Yeah, scouring.
Seems like a good one.
Yeah, but I don't know. Android Things is kind of not a very good name.
Is this surprising?
I mean, it's surprising in that they bothered. Like, I don't think Android Things is like better than Brillo. Like, they're both bad for different reasons.
Can we just like take a minute to try to list off all the things that Google has named well the first time?
Who?
Android.
Google Talk.
I think that's a pretty good name.
Google
didn't
Talk
they-
was
Android was not
aptly
Google.
named.
But didn't they acquire that name?
Yeah.
Okay, a good point.
Android
Yeah,
came
they
with
did
the
buy
acquisition.
Android.
Yeah, they bought Android. Let's see. What else? What else is a good Google name?
Was
Google.
Gmail? What's that?
Is
Google
Gmail
is a good name.
Gmail? I think is acceptable. I think it's good descriptive.
Wait,
Did it
did it
release
not
as-
debut as Google Mail?
Or did it release as Google
No,
Mail?
it was Google. No, wait, it was Google Mail in the UK. It was Gmail in the US.
Well, they get like 80% on that one. Then they don't get all of it.
It's
Wait, was
still
it
a
even
B.
the UK? I thought it was just Germany.
I thought, well, I don't know. I might be. I thought it was UK. Maybe it's Germany. I don't know. But there was like some sort of copyright thing where they couldn't use Gmail right away in some places. Okay, so
I would say YouTube, but no, they bought that.
Yeah.
Is I don't know. Project Phi. I kind of like
well,
Phi.
Okay, Project Phi, I'll give you.
Oh, really? I don't
Oh,
love
so-
that name.
I don't know.
Okay, how about Nexus? Yes. I was just gonna say
Corbin says Google Reader, which is great.
Google
because, yeah.
Reader? Let's just claw open those wounds.
I'm actually going to veto the suggestion of Google Photos just because it's too obvious.
It's like Google Calendar.
Okay, somebody
Chromecast.
suggested Chromecast, which is a bad name.
Yeah,
It's a
no, it
bad
doesn't make
name.
any sense. You know what makes Google Cast
Okay,
more
but it
sense?
sounds
They were like,
good.
no, let's not do that anymore.
It at least sounds good. It's totally logical, but
And just
people buy it.
just to clarify, did Google Photos originally launch as Google Photos, or did it launch as something else first?
It launched as part
It
of
was Google
Picasso.
Plus Photos first, wasn't
No,
it?
well, Picasso was the original, like the Google.
Picasso.
Yeah,
Picasso.
but Picasso
Well,
didn't Google
sort
buy
of.
Picasso?
Did
Yeah.
they? God damn it, Google.
Picasso was a good name. They should have never gotten rid of that. That was a good name.
Picasso, for the time it was usable, was a good Windows basic photo editor application. Actually, it was fine. It was okay. It wasn't bad. It was like Lightroom Light, kind of, sort of. So, what's the worst Google product name? I think that's the more important question.
No, it's definitely Orkut.
Oh yes,
Orkut, yeah.
absolutely.
They bought that.
Did they?
I thought it was.
Did I?
No,
I'm
did
pretty
they?
sure they bought Orkut.
I would have sworn
Hold
that
on.
was
Wait,
in house.
Guys, I've got this. The worst Google product name, Play Store. There you go.
No, you know what? Hold on, wait. I'm looking up Orkut, and then
Maybe they did start it. I could have. The service was designed, owned and operated by Google. Oh, wait, named after its creator, Google employee, Orkut, something.
Well, I'm
very
sorry
Nordic.
that this
He has a
guy-
very
I'm
Nordic
sorry
last
that-
name.
I'm sorry, this guy's last name is his whole name is unfortunate because
I think
Orkut-
it's all right. I'm gonna give it a try here, and I'm gonna ruin it. Boyukuten?
he is I don't know, he is from Turkey apparently.
Oh, he's from Turkey. Well, I completely miffed on.
He's from the Nordic region of Turkey, though, so it's okay.
Okay.
The Nordic region of Turkey. That's the episode title.
Okay, the worst Google product name is Knoll. KNOL. That was a thing. It was like Google. It was like Google.
Yeah.
It was like Google's Wikipedia.
Oh,
Oh, like
Yeah.
short for
Knowledge.
knowledge?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Ooh,
Yeah.
is it what's spelled NOL?
Oh no, wait. The term Knoll, which Google defined as a unit of knowledge. I would like one Knoll, please. What's
That's
the
pretty-
exchange? What's the
okay.
exchange rate of $1 null to $1?
That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Google Buzz, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, that wasn't
that one
a bad
acceptable.
Google
bad
Buzz was
product.
just really easy to laugh at. That was the issue with Google Buzz.
Yeah. Fun fact: Google Null is actually back in the day. That was how you verified your Google profile, which translated over to Google Plus. So in like 2010, if you verified your Null account, you to this day have a verified Google Plus account.
Interesting.
Interesting.
I don't know. I think Allo is a pretty dumb name.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's up there on the worst names. Duo, slightly less dumb, but still pretty dumb.
Everything about Duo I describe as slightly less dumb than Allo.
Yeah, that seems
Apparently.
to be the trend. Google Duo. Remember that other thing we did? Of course not. But you might remember this.
I mean, Gboard is kind of bad.
Gboard
I mean, it's bad in a cringy way, but not in like a product naming way. Like it makes sense because Gboard is very close to keyboard. You know, phonetically.
I can see this. I can see a product person just giggling with glee when they came up with this.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah. I'm not going to defend that one. There's so many. I mean, just so many.
I know there are.
But hey, Microsoft, if you look through Microsoft product names,
God.
very few of them are silly unless you count like Bob. Oh my, seriously, who was stupid enough to come up with
They're
that?
not silly, but some of them are just dumb, like SharePoint. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's a point of sharing. Nobody understands what that entails.
I don't think it's any less vague than
terrible.
I don't think it's any less vague than intranet though, which is basically what it replaces.
Though, hey, Microsoft also had the Kin. There's literally nothing about that product that was not stupid at its core.
They have the Kin and the Kin 2, which is akin to a Kin.
That's one of my favorite smartphone disasters ever. It was such a mess from the moment
It's a
it was
dumpster
announced.
fire.
And they had so many. I don't know if you remember. They had so many unsold units that they started selling them again on Verizon, like without the special data plan that they were including with all of them. They're just like, just please take these. They're really cheap. They suck, but just take them, please.
Yeah, I'm here because my iPhone's not working. Would you like a Kin? We're just getting free of charge for everybody. We'll pay you to take it. It's like $5 for a Kin.
All right, so you know what? It's probably worth mentioning just because we talked about it real briefly, but Gboard actually is an Android thing now. So Google Keyboard now Gboard with 6.0 update. So there it is. You can decide for yourself whether you like the name or not, but you could also have it on your phone.
It has new features and stuff. It's actually a good update.
And the number one feature is a dedicated number row.
Yeah, whatever, guys. Really? Do you have to type that many numbers that you can't? Like, you have to type that many numbers that you can't just long press?
No, I'm sorry.
So
long pressing is bullshit. I need the numbers all the time.
I can tell you from my personal use. So I have a username that typically has numbers in it, and I have passwords that typically have numbers in it. It drives me nuts that I have a dedicated number row for the passwords, but not for the usernames.
All right. So literally, like almost half of all my usernames have numbers in them because I have an obnoxious username. See my Twitter handle. So yeah, I welcome this change. This is good news for me.
Fine.
I won't, though, to some extent. Like, if you have to type number, like more than one number, you should probably already be switching over to the actual like numpad style.
No, but so I have to go from a number to a letter to two numbers.
This
right?
was,
but that is also your fault.
This was poor planning.
It is totally my fault. It's absolutely, completely my fault.
Well, I'll just tell you that you have no idea how many numbers you have to put after a username of M. Smith to make it available.
Yeah, you guys should just have more unique names, like mine, that nobody can ever pronounce or spell correctly. It's been great my entire life.
Whatever, Whitman.
Yeah, I know, right?
Hey, so to this keyboard's credit, one really neat feature is the integrated search. I think that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
I've only used it
cool.
like once now, but
yeah, I mean it's neat.
Neat having it.
Yeah, and for people who are not dumb Americans, you can have multiple active languages.
Yep, things I will literally never get any use out of. It's past my time. I will never make use of this feature. I've resigned myself to that.
Our brains are old and dumb now.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so we're going to take a step back because we skipped over Daydream stuff, mainly because Gboard came up. So transitions, it's how we do things around here. So this week, Need for Speed for Daydream View came out. And, over the past couple of weeks, there's actually been quite a few new Daydream stuffs.
Yes, last week Google announced, well, I don't want to say a whole bunch, several. They announced like 6 more games and other apps. So, I mean, it's not like you can get anything you want on Daydream, but the selection of games at least is certainly filling out. So, Need for Speed VR is like the most ambitious one they've released so far. It's a racing game, so you probably get the gist of it. But you are inside the car, and you steer by tilting the remote left and right. And it's neat that you can just look around inside the car, and you can if you need to see what's behind you, you sort of glance up at the rearview mirror, and you can see things sort of come up alongside you. It's neat. The controls are very forgiving though, because there's not really a lot you can do with just tilting the remote slightly back and forth, not even as much as if you were playing another Need for Speed game where you can tilt the whole phone or something. So it's not it doesn't feel like as challenging of a racer. And it costs $15, which is actually $5 less than Google said it was going to cost. But I mean, still $15 for a VR game on a phone seems like a lot. It doesn't appear to have any in-app purchases, even though the Play Store says that it does. I certainly hope they never add any, because that's kind of crazy.
We're talking about EA here, Ryan.
I know we're talking about EA, but I think even EA, after charging $15 for a smartphone game, would have to question the wisdom of that.
And so this game is strictly VR, right?
Yes, it is only VR.
Okay, so they're going to sell no copies. They're just not going to.
Probably. Look, I mean, it's exclusively for Daydream, so I'm sure Google paid them whatever money dollars they wanted to do this. So a couple of the other games are pretty nah. I mean, they this Underworld Overlord thing I thought looked pretty cool. It's a tower defense game, but when you actually play it, it's pretty demo game sort of feeling. It's I don't know, everything just feels very clunky and slow, and the controls for moving around are bad. Wands, which is I think a game that's been on the real VR headset things, where it's a dueling game where you have a magic wand. That's cool and all, but you need to play against somebody, and when I was testing it, there was nobody to play against. I don't know, maybe there are 2 other people playing it now. So that's the thing. So HBO Go and Now, I think one of them was out right before this came out, but so there's that, so you can watch HBO on your Daydream headset.
No, you can watch HBO on a virtual television on your Daydream headset.
Yeah,
That's cool.
like all VR video apps, they give you a fancy little room to sit in and watch on a big screen TV.
Well, I much prefer when you do play movies, they put you in a movie theater, so it's essentially totally dark.
One of them has you looking like a screen in the wilderness. Which one is that? Is that YouTube?
I don't know.
There's one that has literally you're watching a screen in a backyard of a cabin in the woods.
It kind of looks almost drive-in-y, but there's no drive-in. Yeah, that's Play Movies.
Is it Play Movies that does that?
Yeah, that's the only one I've tried. I haven't even, or I opened up
when
YouTube for
movies,
8 seconds.
I was in a movie theater. There were seats.
They probably have different scenes that they cycle through.
Okay, I guess that makes sense-ish.
Okay, so the best of the games that you can get on Daydream right now, I am pretty sure is Gunjack 2. which is
that's what I assumed.
it's a VR shooter. Like you sit in this like pod in space, and spaceships fly at you, and you use the remote to like point at them and shoot. It's fun. Like there's nothing wrong with it at all. It doesn't do any stupid things. It's fun, and it runs well. Although it is $13, which is still kind of a lot.
Yeah, and then that we were talking about this before the show started. About how basically anytime you do anything with Daydream View, even if it's just running the launcher, your phone gets insanely stupid, dumb hot. Like it's kind of a problem.
Yeah, I'm going to kickstart a phone case for the Pixel that has big copper radiating fins coming off of it. So you just put the phone in that before you put it in the Daydream View, and then it doesn't get so hot.
Yeah, it is really impressive just watching a movie. So like when I took my Daydream on a plane and just watched Star Trek for 2.5 hours, like it was still got insanely hot. Just watching a 1080p movie, and it's like the temperature of the sun. Like the phone, ideally should never quite get that hot. I'm sure Google tested for this, but it still is a little disconcerting.
So is this happening because it's basically rendering everything twice, like one for each eye?
So it's basically doing no, I don't think so. I think that's probably all rendered as one scene. You're just getting I don't think that's the issue.
Maybe not so much for video, but for like anything that has a 3D perspective, there have to be different images.
Yeah. There are definitely two different scenes being rendered, at least in most of the cases. Even in the Cardboard SDK, they talk extensively about how you have to adjust for each lens having different angles on it. That is definitely a part of it, but it's not just that. You're still rendering just to parts of the screen. You've only got so many pixels you have to fill. Part of it is, I think they're just using optimized. Maybe, I don't know. Something is doing.
And you do have your phone like strapped into like a little fabric pouch. It probably bottles up the heat.
Oh, and you know what? Another part of it is they disable throttling or partially disable throttling to maintain that solid, no questions asked, 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
Just
constant. I bet because if you got like lag, it could like make you throw up.
Yeah.
Well, that, or they want to give you the idea that the experience can degrade. Obviously wouldn't look good for them.
Yes, but have you used Android for the last however many years it's existed?
Yeah.
I don't know. Melting your phone also looks bad for them.
Yeah, yes. Let's just hope that no pixels catch fire when strapped to somebody's face.
Yeah, I honestly, I would say that outright, I would never ever recommend somebody spend $15 on a VR game for Daydream. I think that's ridiculous. Lot. Yeah. I understand that maybe EA thinks that they have $15 of explorable content, but the issue is, to me, not that there isn't that amount of content there, so much as I don't think the experience warrants that price. You're not getting something that's so dramatically different from every other mobile game. You're getting, you're getting the Daydream side, but it's not like making it VR ready was probably all that hard for EA, especially in a driving game.
The other thing I think about it is, I think everybody who's used Daydream VR can kind of agree there's only a certain amount of time that you can use this thing continuously.
Yeah, unless you're just straight up watching a video, watching a movie, you can wear it for a long time, assuming it doesn't, ruin your neck. But for anything else that's like frantic and like actually actively involved, yeah, you want to take it off pretty soon. It's kind of the experience is a bit not overwhelming, but tiring in a way.
Uncomfortable.
I could sit and watch a screen in VR for a while, but playing a game, yeah, eventually I'm just gonna be like, nope, it's too much right now. I'm gonna need to take it off readjust, and then maybe go back to it.
But so yeah, I think the overall point is it's definitely there. The cost of the games, it makes sense given be able to access them right now, but at the same time, you know that those prices are going to come down. They're going to have to.
I mean, apparently, Need for Speed came down $5 before they even released it. So hopefully they continue that trend.
So that may be an exclusive. Going back to that really quick, I have a funny feeling EA probably is going to reuse some part of this somewhere else. It may not be the content itself, but I'm sure they're developing for the PlayStation VR. They're going to have. They're definitely going to have a VR game. I think that's already announced. So many other things are going to do with this anyway. So this was probably just like the deal that they cut.
Completely agree. They're going to rehash whatever content's in this game, without a doubt. They didn't just make an entire game for Google for Daydream. Like, oh well, we made you a very special Need for Speed just for Daydream. This is like, hey, we had this kind of like mobile platform laying around. It had some content in there. I guess we could do this with it. It might work with VR. This definitely feels like, here's some scraps we can make into a game. Not scraps. That's probably a little too mean. We have an idea. We're going to make other games with it. We could make a VR game that's slightly different from the other ones, and you can have that.
Right. Hey, we're going a little bit long on Code Google, so I thought it would be a good time to break for a word from our sponsor.
This week's Android Police podcast is brought to you by Linode. Linode has hosted AndroidPolice.com for over 6 years now. Not only are we very happy with their service, we're extremely proud to have them as a sponsor here on the show. And as part of our partnership, you, our listeners, can get a free $20 Linode service credit today just by signing up at linode.com/AndroidPolice. That's L-I, and as in no, O-D as in dog, E.com/AndroidPolice. That is a no strings attached $20 service credit that you can use today to get a server up and running. Now, what do you get for $20? Well, you could get 2 months of service on Linode's base tier, which gets you a server with 2 gigs of RAM, 1 CPU core, 24 gigs of storage, 2 terabytes of transfer capacity, 40 gigs per second communication inside the network, and 125 megabits per second out. If you need something more robust, well, Linode's got you covered. Their servers go all the way up to 120 gigabytes of RAM, 20 CPU cores, 1920 gigabytes of SSD storage, 20 terabytes of transfer capacity, and 10 gigabits per second outside the network communication speed. So Linode has pretty much anyone covered that needs a powerful server. So if you head to linode.com/AndroidPolice, you can check them out. They have add-on services you'd expect as well, backups, node balancers, and Longview, and basically everything you need to get a server up and running right now. So go ahead and check them out. And thanks again to Linode for sponsoring the show.
All right, thanks to Linode for sponsoring us this week. Moving on, Google and their self-driving car ambitions have slightly changed directions. It's apparently now a new company called Waymo. Waymo is the self-driving Google car company. And it looks like they might be changing a little bit of the focus on how the cars are made as well. So a new direction entirely, apparently, for the Google self-driving car.
Yeah, so the information had a story, I think, the day of this news coming out, where they said, Google self-driving car unit's a mess. Firing, everybody's leaving, everybody's going away. They're not going to do the car anymore. And Sergey Brin wants to do the car, and Larry Page is like, no, I don't want to do the car anymore. And there's disagreement. So it sounds like I would be inclined to believe the information. Yeah, Google will probably continue to use these little bubble cars for like testing and research purposes, but I sincerely doubt Google will ever sell a car, at least in the next 5 to 10 years.
I mean, did people expect them to sell the little bubble cars really, though?
I don't know. I think maybe people thought they might try.
That always looked to me like here's our prototype where we're going to test our self-driving car stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the information said that all of the resources now are going into Fiat Chrysler, with the Chrysler Pacifica as being the platform for the technology for now, and Google wants to look more into working with existing auto manufacturers to integrate the technology into regular vehicles, which makes sense because the Google bubble car is visually an atrocity. There's no other way to put it. It is a ugly ass car.
I always thought it looked like a character from Hello Kitty.
It does, and in a really bad way. Like, it is irredeemable. Japan probably would love this car, which is a kind way of saying that nobody else on Earth would. So it is, it makes a lot of sense for them to focus more on integration rather than actually trying to provide a mobility solution.
Yes, develop something that will work in cars people actually buy.
Yeah, so I am, the fact that they spun it off into its own company is interesting, because with the Informations article, you get all these negative vibes that things are going badly for the unit, but with spinning it off, it's saying it's no longer an experiment, it's a serious business. So you get mixed signals here about what, Google wants to obviously...
mixed signals, that would never happen.
Yeah, right. We're serious about this, but it's not really working. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
We are serious about letting this either fail or not fail.
Yeah.
Well, okay. The one middle ground, they could be doing it for tax purposes. Like, spin it off into its own company and turn it into kind of like a weird loss leader thing. It would make a little sense to do that, but like, you wouldn't announce it. You wouldn't make a big deal out of that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Google is probably so enraptured with the idea that there's a lot of potential in the car right now. The idea that they can get a foot in the door early as the car smartifies, as it were.
Yeah.
I hate myself for saying that.
I mean, it's a market that they will want to be in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. And so I think the long-term investment makes sense, but I don't think the long-term investment is indicative of them having any traction. I find this still very, I'm a car person, so I find this very fascinating what Google is trying to do here. So what for me is the kind of holy grail right now is the first company that is confident enough to say, we have a self-driving solution that is road ready for any situation right now. And given Google's almost there,
I thought Eco already had one.
Yeah, right. So given how incomprehensibly ahead Google is on machine learning and AI compared to most other companies trying to do this, I feel like Google is got to be the closest of anybody. And I'm just waiting for that day where they announce, yeah, we can plug this into a car, all these sensors, and it'll drive itself, no problem. We're confident in the product and the idea, the technology now, because nobody's been willing to say that. Even Tesla's autopilot, as impressive as it is defined by its limitations. Whereas Google seems to be much more interested in the idea that we want a self-driving system that accounts for every contingency. Truly doesn't need a human there. So I'm still watching this with intense curiosity. I'm not pessimistic about it. I just think it might take a little longer than we're hoping it will.
See, you just said that guy, which is why you're interested. I know a little bit about cars. I like cars, but you know what? I am so far from a car guy. That's why I'm interested in this. I want to not have to worry about the details as much. I want to be able to get it on the road, take a 3.5 hour trip up to Portland and pay zero attention for 90% of that trip.
Oh, I'm right there with you. Even as a car guy, for me, the idea that if I have to sit in traffic for an hour and a half, I don't want to have to engage with that experience. I want to be disengaged from that experience. That's not fun. And And I think anybody can agree. And then even when I do want to be engaged with driving, I feel much safer with the knowledge that other people are safely disengaged from the process.
Yes.
That to me is great. Get all those old people with their self-driving cars. Don't let grandma drive alone. Let the car do it instead. That's
everyone who wants to be texting, everyone who's caught up in a like overly involved phone conversation, everyone who's playing Pokemon while they drive, Pokemon Go. Yeah,
totally.
let's take these people away from the steering wheel. That would be awesome.
It would indeed.
All right, so one little last story in the Google category here, revolving around Meizu. Is that the pronunciation, David?
Yes, Meizu is, I think, the correct pronunciation.
So Meizu, the Chinese smartphone maker, apparently entering into the Europe market, is starting to kind of raise some questions about Google's policies regarding the Google suite of apps. And yep, it got mine too. Don't worry, guys. So anyways, apparently there's a little bit of an issue that's been raised because this is a phone manufacturer that is not part of the Open Handset Alliance, that is shipping phones that run Android without the Google suite of apps, but giving you extremely easy ways to get them working on their phones. And it's kind of put Google into an interesting position that they kind of have to figure out going forward, right?
Yeah, so before I published this, I had not remembered, and I had been told this before, and I had looked at it before, that Meizu ships phones with something called Aliyun OS. They also ship phones with something called FlymeOS. FlymeOS is based on Android and is compatible, supposedly. I actually just got a message from Meizu's PR people saying that their position is that FlymeOS is Android compatible. So it would pass CTS, etc. But Aliyun OS, or excuse me, Yun OS, it's now known, is not. So Meizu is owned in part by a company called Alibaba. If you know anything about Chinese e-commerce, or if you've heard of Alibaba before, or AliExpress, they're huge. They developed a fork of Android, so it's incompatible with mainline Android. It's called Yun OS. It was previously called Aliyun. We covered it when it was called Aliyun. When Acer wanted to make an Aliyun phone, and then Google was like, no, maybe if you do that, we kick you out of the Open Handset Alliance. And so Andy Rubin made a huge, big stink about it way back when, seriously saying to everybody, if you build a product that runs a forked Android, you cannot have Google apps on any of your devices ever until you stop doing that. And so a line was drawn. Meizu shipping these Yun OS devices, well, they also drew a line, and Google apparently at some point in the last year or so decided that meant revoking their Google Mobile Services Agreement, or Meizu withdrew from it. I don't really claim to know. And so now they're shipping phones without Google Mobile Services. But when you set up the phone after you're done with that, you can open up their app store, and some of the top downloaded apps are illicitly distributed Google apps. You can download, and install all the necessary framework and service APKs to put Google services on your non-GMS phone, your Meizu phone. And this is obviously...
So it's just like if you downloaded CyanogenMod and it has no Google apps pre-installed, but then you get the OpenG apps package and flash it.
Yeah, except more of a pain because there's no G apps package. I assume the bootloader's locked and everything, so you can't flash the G apps. But there's a process there to get all this stuff on the phone. This is obviously with Google does not condone this. They also don't necessarily explicitly punish it or anything, but it's clearly...
They could if they wanted to. It's still their code, even though it's free.
They could if they wanted to. That's right. So essentially Meizu's in this position where they were selling GMS phones, and then Google decided, you're selling forked Android phones with Ali Uno OS too, and we're not going to let you keep shipping GMS anymore. That is the one thing Google does enforce, by the way. So you can do what Meizu's doing, and have your app store have essentially pirated Google apps on it, and set up all of that, essentially kind of a workaround to getting GMS on your phone. But Google is very, very, very watchful about phones that pre-ship, with GMS installed. So if GMS is part of the firmware image, Google will be after your ass pretty quickly. They were after CyanogenMod about this, years ago. And that's a mod. So if somebody's making a profit off of including GApps on their phone, Google's going to be there very quickly to make sure everything's kosher. So Meizu's doing this workaround. Now, essentially, Meizu is daring Google to say you can't do that. And Google hasn't yet done anything about it. Now, Meizu reached out to me 15 minutes ago, literally, after I published this article, to say, we are working with Google about GMS. That's all they say. I mean, I'm going to ask them what working with Google
But in the meantime, they're going to keep listing in the App Store the Google Framework Installer. Or whatever.
Exactly. Which is so shady.
Well, it also seems counterproductive. So if you're working towards getting the certification, maybe you should probably, try to limit the amount of people who can get it illicitly.
Yeah.
Well,
so I mean,
but Meizu's had not the best last couple of years as other Chinese OEMs have gotten much, much bigger. I think they're probably very concerned, like if they do something to take away people's access to Google apps, then they would just stop selling phones.
Yeah. I mean, the Google apps are the ultimate carrot, as opposed to the stick of, making sure everybody stays compatible with Google's Android. So this is a situation where Google, eventually, especially if Meizu gets more market share, will have to assert probably its position here. Now, Meizu says they're working with Google. I don't know what there is to work with. You can either say, there's essentially three outcomes here. Ali Uno OS or Uno OS becomes compatible with Android. Maybe they're working on that. I don't know. Two, Meizu is hoping that Google is going to reconsider its policy on forked OSs.
Unlikely.
Yeah, exceptionally unlikely. Or Meizu's just, biding time and seeing what happens.
It's also possible that Meizu is coming into a discussion saying, "Look, we won't make any of those anymore."
Why do they even make phones with
because Alibaba
UnoS?
owns 30% of Meizu, and Alibaba makes Ali Uno OS.
But why does it exist? What does it do that they need to keep making it?
Well, I think I think that Uno OS probably adds some of its own things, but mostly it's probably about controlling the
isn't
revenue.
there a certain amount of operating within the Chinese firewall that gives them a little bit of an advantage over there?
Yeah, no, I mean Uno OS is not distributed outside mainland China, so it is a strictly domestic product.
I mean, it's weird that they would bother with like a forked version of non-compatible Android in China and then do something else for outside of China when like other OEMs that operate in mainland China and elsewhere, they just have like the non-GMS version of the same ROM that they give everybody else.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. So yeah, I am curious to see how this ends up playing out. I would bet that this ends when Uno OS dies. That's what I see this ending.
How many other phones are making, or how many other manufacturers are making Uno OS devices?
I'm uncertain. I would bet there are some smaller manufacturers in China that are making them, though.
They're still making them. Ones that really don't have any aspirations of.
And I mean, in terms of relevance, so you get an idea. Meizu announced new phones with Uno OS 4 months ago, so pretty recently. It's not dead or anything.
All right, so let's move on to BlackBerry. Apparently, they've announced a deal of some sort with TCL or Alcatel regarding hardware manufacturing. So, David, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So BlackBerry has handed over exclusive phone manufacturing rights to TCL for every country in the world except India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Indonesia. So there's this cluster of Southeast Asian countries, but everywhere else in the world to make BlackBerry phones. And one thing I noticed, and that I can say because it's public knowledge, is I checked into a couple people who worked for Alcatel in the U.S. On Twitter, and their profiles no longer mention Alcatel. Really, they mention TCL. So I think what we're going to see happening is that Alcatel is going to reposition its premium smartphones around the BlackBerry brand exclusively. There won't be any more high-end Alcatel phones. There will be high-end BlackBerry phones made by TCL. Which I think is good. I think that's way better for TCL and their regional arm in North America, especially. I would bet
regardless of everything that's happened with BlackBerry, you have to kind of think that name holds a little bit more weight here than Alcatel's does.
It does, and I think at the low end, Alcatel's name will persist because Alcatel actually sells a crap ton of phones in America. Like you would not believe. They're number, I think, 4 in the US or something like that.
And most of them are like the free with a contract kind of phones, right?
Exactly. They're free or like $50 or like $30. Like they're really
they're
cheap.
not selling a lot of the Idol 4S.
No. Yeah. So if you recall, the DTEC 50 and 60 are TCL designs. The DTEC 50 is the regular Idol 4, which was never released in America. And the 60 is the 4S Pro, which was, I don't think, ever released at all anywhere. It might have been released in China as a TCL design. But it was the 4S Pro never came to America. So I think that's in itself illustrative of the idea that we're not going to see any more Alcatel One-Touch phones. We're going to see BlackBerry phones, which I'm fine with because you know what this means? BlackBerry handles the software. And with the Priv, they did a pretty good job. It's a relatively stock Android, and actually it's basically as stock as Motorola. It is that close. Might even be slightly more stock than Motorola because BlackBerry doesn't dink with the settings too much. And BlackBerry, being so committed to security, I think has been pretty on spot with monthly security patches. So BlackBerry actually brings something to the table on the software equation. I mean, they bring their own apps and services, which are whatever. But BlackBerry actually cares, it seems, about supporting the product and making sure it stays up to date. They weren't the fastest with OTAs on the Priv, but they did bring them. And so we'll have to see how they handle DTEC 50 and 60, obviously. But I think this is a good thing for Alcatel and BlackBerry both.
It sounds like it. All right, so one last story on the hot sheet. Verizon, well, actually, starting off, Samsung issued an announcement that they were going to roll out an update to US Note 7 devices that essentially bricked them. Verizon initially said, yeah, but we're not going to do that because emergency services and stuff. But now apparently they are. So apparently if you have a Note 7 in the US and you're still using it, you don't have much time left.
Yep. They will issue the update on January 5th.
January 5th. Everyone else, I believe December 19th was the date.
And so,
and both, I think, had later dates too.
Oh, did they?
Verizon is, of course, the carrier that released that kind of like eye-rolly statement about we're not going to disable people's phones in the heart of the holiday season. So they're waiting till just after the holiday season, and they're gonna disable their phones.
Well, you got to get over your
4 days after the holiday season, so it's good.
Well, you've got to get over the New Year's hangover.
Right.
Days of that, then get back to the store, trade in the phone. You're good.
They should have just said when they made that statement, we are going to do the update, just not right now. And it was so bizarre to me that they didn't do it that way. I mean, hindsight and all, but like they had to know they would get a little bit of shit over that. And then they got a lot of shit over it instead.
Yeah. It was very bizarre. But when this update does show up, I think this is the one that makes the battery stop charging, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So you'll get the update, and whenever the battery dies, it's dead forever.
Yeah, so
I'm going to
you've got a couple of days.
I'm going to ask a total noob question, but how does a software update prevent a battery from charging?
Well, the battery charging actually goes through a chip that has a dedicated piece of firmware on it. And that's been true of phones for, well, not just phones, but most hardware you get. There's a little tiny piece of firmware that handles how batteries charge. It keeps them from, it's part of what keeps them from overheating. It keeps them from going up. And it's there usually to maintain like more charge cycles, keep the battery from going completely bad in a shorter time. That's the basic purpose of it.
I'm just going to say this. I'm just going to say
PMIC firmware, right?
I think so. I don't.
So the power management integrated circuit.
Yes, that's it.
It seems to me that if there's a piece of firmware that can prevent a battery from blowing up, then maybe Samsung should have been all over this a little bit sooner.
I think
that was a physical issue.
It's still unclear what caused it. I mean, you had that report that came out, which I think was very fascinating about the.
It was open airspace or lack of space, right?
I mean, or the battery charging firmware, they put where it said explode equals, they put a 1 instead of a 0.
That's probably what it was.
It happened again.
They just needed to edit the auto exec batch file.
They Samsung themselves.
All right, good deal. So we're going to move on to emails. Our first email is from Robert. So Robert is a OnePlus One owner, and he's looking to upgrade to a new phone. He's actually curious to get everyone's kind of opinions on whether $649 for a 32 gigabyte Pixel is worth the price difference versus $399 for a 32 gigabyte Nexus 6P. So what are the thoughts, guys?
So he says he has a dedicated camera, but he'd like to have one of the best cameras possible on a phone. So don't get the OnePlus 3 or 3T. They're good, but not amazing cameras.
They're very good for the price.
Yeah. So I would go with the Pixel because honestly, the Nexus 6P's camera can take very good pictures, but it's so slow at taking them.
Oh my God. If you turn on HDR mode, you better hope whatever you're taking a picture of is very still. Like it's a statue. You can take a picture of a statue in HDR. That's it.
If you want the best smartphone camera and it's also an Android phone, get the Pixel without a doubt. No question in my mind whatsoever. You could get a Galaxy S7, which has a very good camera as well.
But not on Fi, right? Because
that's not happening on Fi.
Oh, he's on Fi. So,
well, and that also largely rules out OnePlus anyway. So, and unless you're happy just being on, I think is it default to T-Mobile?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So he was trying to decide between the 6P and the Pixel, and the 6P is cheaper, but you will be happy you spent the extra money on a Pixel.
Yeah, if camera is really important to you, the camera experience on the Pixel is actually such a huge improvement over the 6P. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are certain photos where you side by side with the 6P and the Pixel, and you'll say both of these are really good. In actual day-to-day use, the Pixel will be so much nicer as a camera, especially for the double tapping power to launch and everything. It's so fast. I definitely, if camera matters to you, Pixel all the way.
Yeah, and I mean, and if you're going to use this phone for another 2 years, the 6P is already a year old, so it's going to get one more cycle of major Android updates. The Pixel is new, so it has at least 2 more years of major updates.
Yeah,
and you also got to throw in that the Pixel is getting Google's, we'll call it special sauce. They're obviously going to be showing a lot more love to the Pixel brand now that the Nexus brand is either relegated to a back corner, whatever's happening there. So, you benefit a lot by switching over to the Pixel from the 6P. Plus, that $649 price tag, I mean, I don't have any knowledge, special knowledge on this, but so many deals on that in the next few months. It's
even
not
if
going to hold.
The monthly payment plan, I think, makes it pretty palatable.
Yeah, if you can do the monthly payment, it just works out. It's worth it.
Yeah, I think that one answered.
That one. We got a voicemail. If you want to cue that one up, David.
Yep.
Hi, Android Police. This is Jack. When I'm emailing from my phone, I use the TextPan Pro app a ton. And when I'm emailing from my desktop, I use the auto hotkey script that I wrote for the same purpose. Currently, when I do a text extension on my phone in TextPan Pro, when I update a text expansion phrase that I've written in TextPan Pro, I use a push bullet to manually push the updated text to my laptop's auto hotkey script and vice versa. Do you know a service that syncs text expansion between mobile and desktop, or could you recommend a way to hack one together that has an automated sync? Thanks so much. I hope that the audio quality on this call is better than when I called about Wi-Fi MMS issues on T-Mobile the other week. Love the show.
Okay, so
the audio quality was fantastic.
yeah. I'm going to start with what is unfortunately a very non-answer, but there is a service that covers, sorry, not Android, Windows, Mac OS, and iOS that does exactly that. Unfortunately, they don't do Android yet. And I've heard background rumors that they're going to start working on Android, but that's honestly probably 2 years out. So I wouldn't count that as a
what is it called, just so we know?
Blanking. Text Expander.
Okay.
I think by Smile Software. They started on Macs and they're huge. They're super, super popular on Macs.
Life as a second-class citizen, I guess. And
yeah, there are a couple apps that I know we've written about that do text expansion, but they just exist on the phone. I don't think they have any sort of syncing capability.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, there's so few. There's just doesn't seem to be as much of a market for it.
Man, but I mean, I definitely. I wish I want this too, because like I use Phrase Expander on Windows religiously. I love it, and it's like there's just not really an equivalent for Android that would sync all of my stuff. So if somebody wants to,
I don't know why, but text expansion is not a big syncing territory, even across like desktop platforms.
Yeah, I mean that's well, Phrase Expander does that, but I mean like it's only it's just desktop. So I don't know, if somebody wants to build something that does this, I'll give you money. I'll buy your app.
Much money?
Whatever you want to price the app at. So yeah, I guess we're not much help. Sorry.
Yeah, it's. I don't know much of a way to really shorten that trip. Like, it's already pretty heavily glued together, and there might be something that could ease one or two little rough edges, but it's a lot of tricky stuff to get working.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry, Robert. I realize that probably didn't get you exactly what you needed, but at least gives you something to look forward to with Text Expander. Potentially, well, unfortunately, in 2 years.
I don't know. Start pestering their devs, and I don't know. See if you can like help them.
All right. So last little bit we got, it's an antique. Actually came in last week. We didn't quite get to it in time for the show last week, but we have an antique from Francois. So we've got it here, and I'm going to pull it up on the screen here. Behold, the game stick.
The game stick. So I am actually moderately familiar with the game stick. Because they invited me to some kind of cocktail party, like, geez. So Francois says it was released in November 2013, so it must have been in the summer of 2013 at Google I/O. I think that I went and saw this, which was, Jesus, 3 years ago, which it does not seem like it, but I guess it was.
That was my first I/O.
Yes, you were. Okay, you were there. I remember that then. Okay. I was there as well. I did not have a past I/O, though. I don't think I was able to actually go inside. But this was kind of the retort to Ouya, in a way, but not nearly as popular. They still raised 650 grand, as Francois says. It was a MediaTek chipset, I believe, in the stick you plugged into your, is an HDMI stick you plugged into your TV. It had a gamepad and everything. I will happily admit I was very cynical about it, because it.
Wait, what? No.
Yeah, right. Because I didn't see any potential beyond what Ouya had, and in fact, the potential seemed even lower. But Francois does point out some interesting things about it. First off, there's a dock that could charge your controller when you just put it in the dock, which was kind of nice. It had a full-size SD card reader, apparently, had 2 USB ports for the dock, and a LAN port, which, obviously would be helpful for downloading games and such. It had a USB OTG adapter, and all the cables were labeled, which is nice. Who doesn't like labeled cables? GameStick had some kind of interesting ideas for making. Things like this have been a thing for basically since Android's been around, where somebody puts Android on a USB stick and then puts a crappy app store on it, and then maybe some games, and you plug into your TV with a crappy gamepad and you can do stuff with it. GameStick took that idea and tried to make it into something refined and consumer friendly. Unfortunately, I don't think there's actually any realistic consumer demand for something like this. But the features that Francois talks about, they tried to make it better. I just don't think there was anything great to start with in the concept, because especially the sheer size meant it couldn't do much. We're just barely at the point where we can get like 4K streaming sticks for video, and trying to do a gaming stick. Yeah.
I don't know why it bugs me so much, but the fact that this picture right here clearly shows an L1 and an R1 where there is no L2 or R2 bugs me.
I'm kind of bugged.
It's just L and R.
I'm bugged by the color of the stick itself being like yellow, like an ancient piece of ABS plastic.
This is the picture that I think really pulls it out more than anything.
Yeah, what is up with that? That was a bad decision.
Yeah,
that does look pretty.
Yeah, and so it was apparently $79, which, all right. I remember hearing a lot of big promises about all the games they were going to have and everything, and then just like Ouya, it never really materialized in a meaningful way. And once
at $79, would you say this is a worse investment than a Daydream View?
Ooh, that's actually a very good question.
I mean, I don't have that much trouble saying that this was probably a worse idea than Daydream View.
I don't know.
Well, also timing, because it was $79 then, Daydream View now kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. How much could you do on this then?
It's interesting, though. I had not thought about GameStick in quite a while.
All right. Well, that's hey, do we want to put a price on this one? A eBay value, so to speak?
Well, somebody in the chat has already tainted the pot by putting the Amazon price of the one left on Amazon.
Well, Amazon doesn't count though. We go by
that.
eBay price, and I'm going to say this is worth a solid $25 if it's on eBay.
Francois wants to clarify for our own, if you're watching the video, the stick was not that yellow when he got it. He was smoking
so they
at the time.
Okay. That makes more sense.
No, wait. Were you like blowing the smoke directly on the back of your TV? How did this happen?
Well, hey, that's honest. That's fair.
I'm going to be honest. The first thing I thought
we don't
when
know
I
what
saw
he was
that is it looks like a smoker tent, but I didn't want to throw any accusations.
Your
out
game
there.
stick has emphysema. Sorry.
$17. Oh wait, is that just the dock? Apparently, that's just the dock.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would guess these are rare enough that people feel like they're worth something.
Huh. Controllers, $20. Man, like the whole.
They're going for like $100 on Amazon.
Man, what?
On eBay.
Yes.
On eBay, yeah.
Wow.
Factory
Here's
sealed,
one for $80. Here's one for
$94.
$75. One for $99.99.
Damn.
$95.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. I think this is the first time we've had an antique that has actually
It's holding its value if anybody's actually buying them.
increased in value. Like
But,
it's like a real
but
antique.
it's still only 3 years old.
Should I buy this?
Well, that's not ancient yet.
Should I buy this for my kids instead of the NES Classic since you can't find it anywhere?
Why not both?
Hey kids, I got you something that's basically the same thing.
It's like it doesn't have Mario, but there is this weird knockoff that's very much like Mario.
I think they have like a thing where you're like there's a Yeti and you hop up the hill as a skier or something. It's close enough. You're fine.
All right. Well, thank you to Francois for sending us that, and we appreciate and enjoy all these things you guys send in. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, antiques, or I don't know, whatever else you want to send in, email us at podcast@androidpolice.com, or you give us a call at 530-HELLO-AP. That is 530-435-5627. You can also find us on Twitter at Android Police and on Google Plus and Facebook.
And thanks again to Linode for sponsoring the show. You can check them out at linode.com/AndroidPolice. Get a free $20 Linode service credit. And I'm going to start the broadcast.